This is the HAWKS Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Hawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the HAWKS Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's quick hitting local insight after every game you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is NBA and college basketball analyst Deshaun Tate. The HAWKS Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So for the first time since February 7th through 11th, when the Hawks dropped 3 straight, they've now dropped back-to-back games, and we'll talk about how they fought back tonight, but they fell short in a 122-116 loss tonight to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Tate, you said your take was all about the free throws that did get called.
Yeah, made a difference to me very much in the game. I think not only the differential between, 25 calls on Atlanta versus only the 14 on Cleveland, but I don't really think Atlanta helped themselves a whole lot by shooting 67% from the free throw line either. Now, granted, I get it. 10 for 15, is that like the worst thing in the world, knowing that you're only going to, miss 5 free throws in a game? Probably not. But when I tell you that you're only going to shoot 15 of them, then that's just going to be something that's going to be, painful either way. And I don't, you start factoring in that, because of the way that the roster is constructed. And I know that we'll get to that part a little bit later in terms of, just all of that good stuff, the usage and all of that, rotations. But I think it's just more so the fact that when you've got the bigs the way that you do for Cleveland, you know that when you're undersized and you have a size disadvantage, you're not necessarily crashing the boards on some of those longer rebounds, which Atlanta has to have every single one of those, because they didn't necessarily get every single one of those, although they did a good job. I think that kind of puts you behind the 8 ball just a little bit. Yeah. So I don't think that helps. Did a good job on not sending James Harden to the line. I think he went to the free throw line for the very first time. His first free throw attempt was when it was 112-110 with about less than 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that really helped them a lot, because this could have gotten out of hand. The guy who we talk about, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, being a free throw merchant. Well, James Harden is used to getting a good bulk of his points from the free throw line too. So I think they did a good job there.
Yeah.
But you've got to make your free, regardless of how the game is called. You're not going to get certain calls on the road and whatever else. You got to make sure you're doing your part and hitting yours when you're out there on that island all by yourself. They didn't do that. I thought that was a big part of the game.
Yeah, and you're a bit kinder than I am, because for me, 67% is not the answer. We are, a week away from the postseason?
If
points are going to be at a premium. And when you get the opportunity to score them, you have to score them. It was a game where it's interesting, because depending on who you listened to in Cleveland media throughout the course of this past week, some were saying, oh, the Hawks will win this game because Cleveland, they're not going to play their starters because they want to land in a certain place for the postseason, and they're probably going to hold back. Well, didn't. So you got them at full force, if you will, and somewhat the Hawks at full force as well. But the reason I say that is this. They probably played this game because on some level, when you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference and everybody bunched up between 3 and 10, I don't think any team really has the good fortune or good luxury to not play their players, right?
Sure.
Not play their starters. So, yeah, when the lineups were announced, the starting 5 for each team, I wasn't necessarily shocked that Cleveland pretty much started their usual starting 5.
Yep.
But the reason I mentioned that as well is because Cleveland knows this game was important too.
Absolutely.
And so there were just too many times where, hey, Hawks, it's important for you. So you can't afford to miss out on any opportunities like those give-me's. And the give-me's really are the free throw line. But another thing that was a bit problematic with this game was missed opportunities on the part of the Hawks. So yes, free throws, very much a disparity between the Cavs and the Hawks. But ultimately speaking, you can't kind of hang your hat on that if when you have an opportunity to have a double-digit lead, you then somehow squander it. Because, hey, give the Hawks credit for only being down by 4 in the first quarter and then outscoring Cleveland 38-27 in the second quarter, but then you get doubled up plus in the third quarter, outscored 44-20. That's just not acceptable. Like, you just cannot come out like that. And especially because you had a golden opportunity Monday night against the Knicks. You were up big time in that third quarter and it fell apart. Not time to revert back to your bad habits. This was a conversation you and I always had, Deshaun, that killer quarter for the Hawks. And then, especially once we got past that trade deadline and you started to put certain pieces in play, certain pieces of the puzzle in play, okay, now we're starting to see the Hawks really do what you want a team to do, which is come out to put a BTA in the third quarter.
There you go.
See Quinn Snyder make the halftime adjustments, but instead, what did we see? We saw 14% shooting from the free throw line. Excuse me, the 3-point line. I don't know why it's always so.
Might as well have been the free throw line.
Right. But it wasn't much better, under 56% from the free throw line in that third quarter. Conversely, look at what Cleveland came out and did. Cleveland made its adjustments. Cleveland did what it needed to do. Cleveland hit. They only had 3 free throws, so the disparities were at least down in that third quarter, but they hit all 3. 70% from the 3-point line, 61% from the field. You can't allow that to happen, at least if your shots aren't falling to the tune of 20 points in the third quarter. At a minimum, Deshaun, you got to get stops. You got to get stops.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I think that's the most important thing. I think I made this reference a couple times before, but I don't think it could be more fitting than it is for right now and tonight's game. When you're not hitting shots, because we're talking about a 44-20, scoring output for, for Cleveland. When you're Atlanta and you're not hitting shots, that's one thing. The lid is going to be sometimes on the rim. Life. I get it. But you got to make sure that they're not hitting shots either, to try and muck it up, do what you got to do, keep it close, whatever the case may be. And they weren't doing that, So when you're not helping out Cleveland's defense by any means, by just not being able to put the ball in the basket, you certainly got to make sure that you don't make it easy or make it look as easy as they did for that to be able to happen either. So, I thought that it would have been really important to prevent the front court to stay out of foul trouble. Didn't really have a lot of, large margin for error, considering the fact that, Onyeka Okongwu is only one person. Jalen Johnson, while we do give him a lot of credit for a lot of different things, exactly that. He wears a lot of hats, plays a lot of roles. A lot of times he's not going to do all the I'm surprised sometimes that he was having all the rebounds and different things that he has, because he's got to pass the ball, be the assist guy, bring the ball up the floor, be the traffic director or instructor run the offense and all these different things. He's just not going to be the right rebounder or the front court player that you need him to be from a dominant standpoint under the rim. So you really just have Onyeka Okongwu because there's no Jock Landale there, or you're putting Mohamed Gay down there, which in the most respectful of ways, yes, brings a ton of energy and second chance points, loose balls and different things like that. But we're still talking about Mohamed Gay in the front court. Right. And so I just don't think that they helped themselves a lot by getting into foul trouble, especially Jalen Johnson in some of the most critical moments of the game. I think that kind of hurt them. I thought they really needed to kind of be bully the backboard bullies, especially during, in offensive rebound. They did a good job in rebounding on tonight, to be honest with you, better than I thought that they would. But it was just that third quarter that, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you're right. From an offensive rebounding perspective, not a bad night, because they only allowed 13 second chance points. Most nights you'll take that. You'll definitely take that. It's just that some of those other things, when that game starts to tighten up, there are just things that we saw Monday night as well, where the Cavaliers were able to close things out and the Hawks simply were not able to close out. And listen, we don't take anything away from the 17-2 run that the Hawks had to go on just to make it a game. Definitely that. But again, when you are up 11, you shouldn't have to go on a 17-2 run to make it a game. And just in case you guys keep seeing me kind of look down, one of the things that Deshaun and I want to talk about as well is some of the intricacies of why this game happened tonight, and we're just kind of waiting to see what Quinn Snyder has to say post-game. So we'll bring you that as soon as we can. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know the reason I'm looking is because we're trying to get that post-game insight and then react to it for you guys. But what I just said tells you a little bit about what our X Factor will be coming up next. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what you'll like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really means when you're looking at stars, it's important. Role players, important. Key moments, all of it really matters. And it just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. So here is how you can get started. You can go to FanDuel.com to get things going. That's FanDuel.com. And again, this is a great time because just like Sean and I were talking about, we are getting down to the wire when it comes to the playoffs, and this is a great way to enter the playoffs. So the app, the FanDuel app, if you want to go there, it makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And that extra insight, it's going to matter when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. But check out the current lines and the odds at FanDuel.com. FanDuel is how you play your game. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is brought to you by Quo. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost business money, it's messy communication, missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. The part you're going to love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, even voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks. And the AI summaries save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season, no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls and no missed customers. This episode of our Hawks Postcast is also brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time for a lot of us. The old way of doing taxes, well, it's a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. Is the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. So Deshaun, this was one of those games where it kind of felt like on so many levels, the Hawks kind of regressed to the mean. Again, we had not been talking about a pesky third quarter in a long, long, long time. And it kind of reared its ugly head tonight. And there was another interesting add back that we did not want to see back tonight. And that is our X Factor.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
So in the game against the Magic, essentially Jock Landale got mollywopped. So that opportunity to have the versatile backup for Onyeka Okongwu wiped away, right? And it really was a tough go because to look at what Jock Landale was able to do with the Hawks since they traded for him. It's been pretty remarkable, pretty impressive, not just what he's able to do defensively, but like I said, versatility as far as not being afraid to go outside and shoot the mid-range or even shoot the three-pointer. But that's no longer. So the Hawks go out and they get Tony Bradley, someone that Hawks fans should be familiar with, someone who had an opportunity to play in the NBA Finals with the Indiana Pacers last year. So you like the experience, you like the familiarity with the organization, and you're thinking, okay, we got somebody who can be put in the game and actually bring something to the table, especially for the front court. Except he didn't. He did not play, nor did Zachary Rissache play. So it was a little bit of a confusion, kind of a head scratcher for you and me, because the thought is, well, if we have Tony Bradley, and part of the challenges that the Hawks are facing again tonight that you saw a couple nights ago is dealing with the length and the size of the opponent, at a minimum, why don't you see Tony Bradley?
Especially considering, Tanisha, the fact that this is the potential round one playoff meeting, a big possibility of that. If not, I'm sure you're certainly going to need that size up against. Good chance that it may as well be the New York Knicks. You know, you're going to need that with Karl-Anthony Towns and a few others. It only makes sense to me. Tony Bradley, by the way, a North Carolina Tar Heel, so I see the correlation there for you, Tanisha. All of that being said, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And listen, when I was in Indianapolis over the weekend and I seen this, I was with Brad Rowland, matter of fact, when I seen this whole thing come down, and I was like, Tony Bradley, huh? And I'll be honest, full transparency, I was a bit underwhelmed, but the thing that made me kind of perk up a little bit is the fact that the Hawks were at least trying to acknowledge and address the need finally in the front court for this team, with just, if not nothing else, then with a physical body, somebody that will go out there and sacrifice their body, rebound hard, and just try to do all the little things, despite. And so to do all of that and not utilize that player, I thought was kind of crazy, especially if you don't, which I'm not saying was the smartest thing in the world, but especially if you decide not to go small and exactly Rissache, that really didn't just do it for me. I didn't understand that. And just when I thought that we were at the end of the question marks, of the rotation question marks that we had for Quinn Snyder, this one kind of threw me through a loop a little bit, and was a little bit discouraging to see, because now I'm wondering what's the point.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of, and this is kind of an outside rationale, but I like what you just said, Deshaun, by the way, which is, if you know that you're outmanned inside, you know that your front court is outmanned, well, then play small ball and dare these guys to run up and down this court with you. So that would have been, to me, probably the logical answer. But if not, the only thing that I can think of is having that shock of what happened to Jock Landale, and the thought being, yes, I'll play my starters, but I can't afford to have a backup to the backup go.
That's
down.
right.
That's the only thing I can make sense of. And hey, I'll take my chances with my starters, because my starters still give me an opportunity to win. But as I see my starters kind of not getting it done, do I then want to lose the game and lose the potential backups? That is the only thing that I can think of, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for Tony Bradley. Now for Zachary Rissache, I can't quite make any sense of that one. I don't make sense of that one.
I mean, I'm maybe not in awe. That might be a bit much, but I just really didn't understand the purpose of all of this, because you go and get them, you don't use them when you need them.
Right.
When do you need him more than to find out what he can do against this team? I mean, and I know that this is a totally different situation or whatever, but in some cases I felt like you didn't really know, and I know it's a little different, but you didn't know all the things that, I hate to compare, you didn't really know all the things that Onyeka Okongwu could do until you threw him in there against Milwaukee and put him on just to see what he can do. Then you started finding out we might have something here. This is actually a decent little little matchup challenge for the
Mhm.
defending MVP and defensive player of the year and blah, 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 blah. Like you got to put those guys out there just to be able to see what they can do and use this time to use some different adjustments and try some different things out. Even if they don't work, you got to try them out. You're probably going to play the same team. You have to know who can do what, or you know what? I noticed in the second or third to last game of the season, when we put him in there against Cleveland, he maybe didn't do well here, but defending this guy, he did pretty good. I'm going to try that. When you don't have that blueprint, at least a little bit, or example to go off of, I just don't think it helps a lot.
Yeah, and real quick, just to wrap that point up that you're making, Deshaun, excellent point, by the way, because when you look at the last time these teams played, they look like night and day. These teams had not played each other since November 28th.
Wow.
Exactly. So this was their opportunity to scout you, and this was your opportunity to scout them as well. So just overall, it's a little bit confusing, and I've been trolling up and down Twitter just to see if there was any rationale post game, because could be allergy season. I mean, like, something's going on. Folks are not healthy right now. I get it, but nothing so far. But again, the Hawks are still in position to land anywhere between now 5th place and 9th place. So 3rd place is essentially out of the question, but they'll return to State Farm Arena to take on the same Cleveland Cavaliers team on Friday night. And Deshaun and I sincerely hope that the outcome is far different, because this is that kind of just kind of eats at you, because it's like right there close, but no cigar. And hopefully, in addition to being able to win at home, just you haven't had a losing streak in a couple of losing skid. This is more skid than streak. You haven't had it in a couple months. And so hopefully that stops on Friday. The Hawks Postcast is the #1 place to hang out after every game, and is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more on the Hawks, head over to Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.